Hey everyone, it's Bryan, Barron, Director of Skincare Research at Paula's Choice Skincare. I apologize for the delay. We're about 8 minutes past the start time. I thank goodness I was able to get a hold of my troubleshooting guy, Andrew. He's one of the unsung heroes behind the scenes at Paula's Choice, helping us look better. But there was an issue in the our YouTube studio, and the program that I use to broadcast from have to be connected by what's called a stream key, which is basically a series of letters and numbers. And prior to today, last time I did the live chat, which was in December, I missed you guys. Somehow the stream key got changed, so what was in the YouTube studio was different from what was in the software I use to connect to our YouTube studio so that I can broadcast at the correct time and under the correct topic. So here I am. Again, I'm sorry for the delay. We'll go a little longer if you guys are still asking questions and whatnot. And you might be, because today's topic is skin care myths. So I have chosen 9 or 10, I think 10, of the ones that I hear about or am asked about a lot and have been over the years. I've been in this industry for over 25 years, going on my 21st year of working at Paula's Choice. Gosh, wow. Thinking back to my cosmetic counter days and even before that, working in other retail jobs, and that's something I don't miss. I think there are people that are cut out for a long career in retail, and people that are not. And I enjoyed it for the most part, but I was happy to move into more of an office type job and have more of a consistent schedule. So here we are once again. It's a new year, 2021. I'm hoping with every fiber of my being that it's going to be a much better year than last year, and I think in many respects it will be. There is lots of reasons to look around and be encouraged, and I that's how I choose to look at life. Believe me, I've had, my husband can attest to this, I've had my down and my despairing moments, including fairly recently. We were watching a television show the other night, and it was a newer show, and there was a scene where everybody was at a wedding, and I didn't cry because of the wedding. I was like literally sitting there, and tears started coming down my face because I miss getting emotional now. I miss being with people. I miss interacting with people and having that human connection. We're not meant to stay isolated the way so many of us have been for the past going on a year now. So seeing that wedding scene at this joyful reception with people, nobody wearing masks, nobody social distancing, hugging and dancing and just and living, it just all of a sudden just kind of coalesced and just really made me realize how much I've missed that. And I'm saying that from the perspective of somebody who has not gone through this all alone. I've had my husband, my son, who is just a delight, and of course millions of Zoom chats and all that. And a couple of family members that I have maintained in-person contact with during this whole time. Some people refer to that as a COVID pod. I refer to it as keeping my sanity. Although clearly there's been ebbs and flows there. Anyway, I'm going to go over, where's my document? I'm going to go over my myths, which they're just the ones I chose to talk about. You have probably heard of them as well, and may be wondering if this is true or not. And for some of them, they're repeated so much that they're repeated so much that you have to start to wonder, is it true? Like even if you've heard, well, that can't, or even if like, you stop and you think critically about it and you're like, it just doesn't sound right. I mean, there's some plausibility there, but it just doesn't sound right. So here we go. First one is that dry skin causes wrinkles, and a corollary to that is that people with dry skin wrinkle faster. I think that's where this myth gets confusing, because dry skin in and of itself, which is really defined, textbook definition of dry skin, if you're looking in the scientific literature, is skin that is unable to hold on to its own moisture balance, or it's unable to maintain a normal moisture balance in the skin. And there are numerous reasons that equilibrium can be thrown off. But that's the textbook definition of dry skin. Those underlying conditions affecting skin's ability to remain moisturized, to stay soft and supple and pliant, are not the cause of wrinkles. As many of you will know, that the main cause of wrinkles is sunlight, exposure to UV light. I would add blue light, and increasingly more and more is coming to light, about infrared light, also being contributing factors, as well as airborne pollutants. But no question, that big ball of fire up in the sky we call the sun, which definitely has its pros in terms of mood boosting, and just, I think most people would prefer a sunny day to a rainy day. But no question, when you're not protecting your skin from the sun, it is silently and steadily killing your skin, and damaging and breaking down its support structures that lead to wrinkles. And then second to that would be expression lines. The kind of wrinkles that injections such as Botox can treat so beautifully are another underlying reason. Now, the confusing part, and that when people say, well, dry skin wrinkles faster, that's not necessarily true, but when skin can't hold on to its own moisture and maintain that water balance, it will look more dehydrated, more wrinkled. That dehydration, and the best example I can give in terms of a visual is that a big juicy purple grape, kind they use to make wine. It's smooth, it's plump, it's radiant. You dehydrate that grape, you take that water out of the grape, you get a raisin. Raisins, they're wrinkled, they're shriveled, they're dry. There's enough water left in a raisin that, when you add them to cookies and stuff, they actually do put a little moisture back into the recipe. But that's a great visual example of drier skin wrinkling in response to the fact that it has lost its water content, what made it so plump and smooth. But that doesn't explain dry skin. Having dry skin does not cause what we perceive as age-related wrinkles, the crow's feet around our eyes, lines around our mouth, lines across our forehead. But that lack of moisture will make all of those lines more prominent. Another corollary to that myth is that if you have oily skin, it won't age as quickly. Not necessarily true either. In fact, if you have oily skin, it will make wrinkles less apparent as you start to get them. But if you are not being good about environmental protection when you have oily skin, the UV light and other pollutants can start to oxidize your skin's own oil, essentially causing it to turn against your skin. Your own oil can actually become a damaging element, whereas in its ideal state, and when you're keeping your skin protected from UV light, the oil actually helps contribute to your skin's environmental defenses. And foremost among its jobs is working to help prevent that water from the individual layers of skin from evaporating. Water cannot easily pass through oil. So there you go. Another myth: you can't use retinol products in the morning. I would say that is true if you are foregoing your sunscreen. But if you are foregoing your sunscreen, I would follow that with, why are you bothering with retinol? Because the cumulative sun damage you are getting, even on a cloudy day, is going to work against what you want that retinol to do for your skin, assuming you are using retinol to help your skin look younger and healthier for as long as possible. So the truth is, you can use retinol during the day as long as you are protecting your skin from the sun. Now, because no sunscreen is 100% effective, it's not a lead blanket for your skin, for your face. If you know you are going to be outdoors in direct sunlight for a long period of time, in that scenario, I would say, yeah, put the retinol on at night, because in that scenario, with the longer term exposure and the more intense sun, it is certainly possible that enough UV light will get through to start breaking down the retinol, particularly if you're not being good about reapplying as often as you should on those long days outdoors. But general day-to-day activities, especially if you're spending most of your day indoors, it's totally fine if you prefer to use your retinol product, whatever it is, whatever format, whatever strength, during the day, and then follow with your sunscreen. Next one, blackheads. They can be scrubbed away. All you need, blackhead, just use that scrub 3 or 4 times a day, kind of try to stay ahead of the blackhead. It won't work. I know in a chat or two ago, I talked about blackheads kind of being like weeds on a lawn, and when those weeds start popping up, you can mow over them. And, when those weeds are cut to the same height as the surrounding nice green grass, they don't look as obvious. But within a matter of days, those weeds are surpassing the growth of your normal healthy grass, and they're visible once again because you did not get them at the root. So if you scrub hard enough and you're using a really gritty granular scrub, you can lop off or kind of dislodge the uppermost portion of that blackhead, and you rinse and you dry your face and you're like, yeah, my blackheads don't look as apparent, or maybe they're not even visible at all in that moment, but in a short period of time they will be back. And then you have to deal with the fact that you've really damaged and irritated your skin by using a harsh, abrasive, gritty type of scrub. I always say, we used to say some people are gentler on their kitchen floors than they are on their own face, because they just, you have these blemishes and you just kind of go after them with whatever you can think of, and kind of in the mistaken notion that the cleaner your skin is, the less likely it will be to have these perceived flaws. The best way to tackle blackheads is not with a scrub. Scrubs are great for extra cleansing, assuming that they're gentle and you're using them gently, not applying a ton of pressure. The unscrub, which Paula's Choice offers, has those specially designed water dissolvable jojoba beads. So we kind of made it foolproof. It's impossible to overdo it with that product, but you still get that nice, smooth, extra cleansing that a scrub can deliver, the good kind. But a leave-on BHA exfoliant, salicylic acid at a 2% concentration. Some people may need more than that, depending on the stubbornness of their blackheads, or you may need to alternate different strengths of BHA. But that is going to be what is going to penetrate into the pore lining and help break up that clog at the base of the pore that is contributing to this buildup in the pore lining that then surfaces and turns black in response to air exposure. You can't use niacinamide and retinol, or niacinamide and vitamin C at the same time. Myth, 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 myth. There are, regarding vitamin C, and we do have an article about this specific niacinamide vitamin C combination on the paulaschoice.com website in the expert advice section. Check it out when you get a chance if you haven't already. But that information was based on older research. It was based on a lack of knowledge and understanding on how those ingredients can be stabilized to work together in one formula. And the same is true, well, not exactly true, for retinol and niacinamide. Both of them are cell-communicating ingredients. Retinol, as we learn more about the soothing, calming effect that niacinamide can have on the skin, it's becoming increasingly apparent that niacinamide is a really interesting ingredient to help prevent retinol from tipping the scales in favor of irritation. It helps to enhance your skin's tolerability to retinol. Some of you may recall my discussing before that there is an enzymatic process in skin that works to make sure that once retinol makes that connection to its receptor sites and starts sending those messages to the cells saying, hey cell, do this better. Hey cell, you're doing that wrong. I need you to start doing it this way. And then those messages are heard, and in an ideal situation, they are acted on. And then that's how retinol starts producing those great results. But when the retinols keeps firing those messages long past the point where the cells is kind of like a nagging mother, and you're just like, yeah, I got it. Put the casserole in the oven at 530, 350 degrees. You don't have to tell me again. That's kind of like what happens when retinol just keeps going. So niacinamide can help work with those enzymes in skin that for whatever reason aren't doing their job efficiently enough, and it can work with them and talk to the retinol and say, okay, that cell got the message. You can step back and move on, or just you can start winding yourself down. That's really what ends up happening in the skin, is that retinol becomes less and less potent. But if that message just keeps getting fired, so to speak, that is what can lead to kickback from retinol use, and you may get what some dermatologists refer to as retinol dermatitis, where after a few days of using retinol, particularly higher strength retinol, you may your skin may feel sensitive, you might see some redness, you may see some flaking, you might, because I've experienced this, the best way I can describe it is my skin feels sunburned but doesn't look sunburned. It's like that tenderness to the touch. You can almost feel some extra warmth to the skin, and then when I find that cadence, the right frequency of use and the right strength of retinol that works for me, then all of that stabilizes. And for some people, that retinol dermatitis is just a hump that you have to get over, and with increasing use, spacing out the days, every other day, maybe every third day, your skin acclimates. That process gets in line, and all those players in your skin are like, okay, yep, this is retinol. We know how to handle it and still let it do its job. So you only are seeing benefits. Okay, but yeah, you do not need to worry about applying niacinamide and vitamin C, or niacinamide and retinol at the same time. In the case of niacinamide and retinol, particularly as I just explained, that is a helpful relationship. And then in the case of niacinamide and vitamin C, there are some people that will say that because niacinamide works best at this pH, and vitamin C, when we're talking about pure vitamin C, ascorbic acid, that it needs a different pH than niacinamide. A good cosmetic chemist knows how to overcome those limitations and put those ingredients in a formula in different phases so that they actually can stay separate, and the vitamin C can actually still work within the parameters of the formula's pH. Pretty cool. So it's just not something you need to worry about. Next one, don't start using anti-aging products too soon, or they won't work when you really need them. This is a really quick one to debunk. The short answer is that is no truer than telling somebody that they need to wait to start eating healthy or wait to start exercising until they're really out of shape and overweight, or until their doctor is saying, you're pre-diabetic, you have high blood pressure, you have all these health problems that I can trace back to your poor diet. Now you start eating healthy because now all of these nutritious foods are really going to help you. That's just not how it works. If you eat healthy foods, if exercise, take care of yourself, you are going to be able to maintain your appearance and your health at the level that you want for a much longer period of time. You start using anti-aging products, you can start using them childhood years. I mean, and the reason I say that, I'm not like advocating for kids to start using eye creams, but the number one anti-aging product out there is sunscreen. And there's absolutely no reason why kids can't get into the daily habit of putting on sunscreen to protect the exposed areas of their skin. How much skin is exposed is going to depend on where you live. And it's not always easy to stay on top of it, because the kids aren't always going to remember. And I admit, as a parent, especially now here in Michigan, in the where most of the days are gray and cloudy, and stay that way, and it gets dark at 3:45. It's easy to forget that, oh yeah, you need sunscreen at this time of year too. So even I make that mistake of omission. But there's no reason that kids cannot and should not be wearing sunscreen on a regular basis. Starting that now will stave off a lot of sun damage that they'll be dealing with later in life. And it isn't just a cosmetic concern, wrinkles and dark spots and rough texture. That cumulative sun exposure over time can set the groundwork for various other health issues, including skin cancers. And there is a direct connection between the inflammation that overexposure to UV light causes and a hampering of not only the skin's innate immune system, which, your skin's your first line of defense to the outside world. You want to keep its immune system humming along nicely, but that cumulative exposure can also damage your entire immune system. It is not a fabrication or even an exaggeration to say that chronic overexposure to sunlight can leave you immune deficient compared to somebody who has had normal incidental levels of sun exposure and has been good about protecting their skin with sunscreen. And you can only imagine the whole host of issues that can crop up when your immune system starts dwindling and isn't able to work as efficiently as it once did. Next up, pores can open and close. When they're clogged, they're closed. Nope. And I heard this from an esthetician not that long ago, and it was actually while I was having a service done. I'm like, okay, I'm just kind of here to relax and enjoy this. I'm not here to get into a debate with somebody, especially not someone who's about to put acid on my face. So I just kind of let it slide. But the fact of the matter is, pores don't open and close like window blinds. You can, if you cause the skin to swell, such as using like really hot water on it or other stimuli that can irritate it, you can make the pores look smaller, like they've closed up. Because that's one of the tips I've seen. Like if you want to close open pores, splash your face with cold water, or dip your face into a sink full of ice water. No, that the inflammation that causes, and to some extent the constriction that causes, can temporarily make pores look smaller, because the muscles, the tiny muscles that control the base of the pore, the pilosebaceous unit, kind of constrict in like that. But within no time, as your skin warms up to its normal body temperature, your pores go back to their normal size. They're not opening again. Whereas the cold water closed them. They're just that as that swelling goes down, and as your skin temperature returns to normal, your pores go back to normal. Pores can and often do enlarge with excess oil and with cumulative sun damage over time. That can cause, because as the underlying support structures that keep skin smooth and resilient, as those start to go, those are supporting your pores as well. And as those start to go, you can actually start seeing your pores enlarge and sometimes take on a teardrop shape, where the bottom portion of the pore looks a little larger than the top portion. That's an early indicator of skin sagging. Some people will also notice an orange peel type texture to their skin when that sun damage starts getting out of hand. And at that point, especially if that's bothering you, there's definitely skincare products and skin procedures that you can do to stop that, excuse me, in its tracks. But you got to commit to sunscreen if you want to, see that work long term. Okay, a few more. If you don't see immediate results from a new skincare product or routine, it's not for you, or simply doesn't work. Assuming the products are well formulated, the truth is a lot of skincare products aren't overnight sensations. It takes time, it takes daily dedication and patience, particularly for concerns around like deeper lines, dark spots, concerns like melasma, where you have more of that diffuse but still pronounced discoloration around the face or on the neck. those concerns didn't happen overnight, and it's not realistic to expect that they'll go away overnight. Uh, Sometimes 3, 4, 6 months of routine usage of the right types of products are what's needed to really start seeing a notable improvement. And then, depending on the concern and the situation, skincare products have limitations. It's just the hard truth. They can do a lot. They really can do a lot, and we're learning more and more about what their capabilities can be and how to maximize that. But I don't think, at least not in my lifetime, that skincare will ever supplant what cosmetic corrective or surgical procedures can do. But as I've said before, it isn't about choosing one or the other, it's about both. Depending on what your comfort is, what your concerns are, where your budget lies. But don't think that you just can ignore all the great skincare products out there and go straight for the Botox, the fillers, the lunchtime lift or whatever they're calling it, and maintain those results. It really the people who have the best looking youngest skin as they age are doing some combination of great skincare and cosmetic corrective or surgical procedures. So give products time. There are a handful. AHA, BHA exfoliants are the ones that immediately spring to my mind for examples of types of skincare products that if you're new to using them, especially, or you've never used one that's well formulated, they can produce fairly fast and impressive results, sometimes overnight, sometimes just after a few days. But those are the rare exception. Skincare it's not a it's not a first date. It's a marriage, and as long as you're using the right products, you're in it for the long haul. And then as your skin type changes with time, as your skin concerns change, you can adapt. Edit your routine, slot in new products that better address the concerns of where you are right now, but keep up with that routine, and that will reap the best results long term. And then you can start looking at options beyond what skincare can do. Skin gets used to certain ingredients or products, so you need to switch things up every now and then. That isn't true either. I go back to the diet analogy again. If you're eating blueberries every day for 6 months, on the 7th month, they don't all of a sudden stop being good for you. When something is good for you, beneficial for your body, beneficial for your skin, there's been few exceptions over the years in terms of what we once thought was true and not what we now know is true. It's always going to be good for you. And there isn't, what can happen, especially just backtracking a bit to the topic of exfoliants, is that when you first start using a product like a leave-on exfoliant, AHA or BHA, or maybe you're using both, you will see a much more dramatic, remarkable difference in those first couple of months than you will after 2 years of routine use. Because with certain products, you get to a point where you're essentially in maintenance mode. They have gotten your skin, they've done as much as they can for your skin, and I think most people would agree, yeah, I like the results. I can't imagine not using this product, but it's unrealistic to think that product can do even more when you get to that stage where you're basically in maintenance mode, meaning that you're not, any additional improvements you get from that product are going to be much smaller than what you initially saw. But that doesn't mean the product isn't working anymore, and it doesn't mean that your skin has gotten used to it, and therefore you need to switch things up. If your concerns have changed, let's say you're using a BHA exfoliant and maybe now you're in your mid-40s and you're starting to see you're getting more white bumps or clogged pores, and your normal BHA just isn't doing its job. This is where this myth can get so confusing. That isn't because your skin has gotten used to the BHA or that your beloved BHA has stopped working. It likely means that your skin is telling you need something more. You need something stronger than what you used to turn to in order to get past this concern. And it's specific to Paula's choice. That is why we offer exfoliants in different strengths, so that you can have that flexibility or at least have the means to experiment if you feel that that is where you're at in your skincare journey. All right, one more, and then I do want to get to your questions, see what you guys are talking about. Medical grade or professional skincare that you can get from your dermatologist is always better than regular OTC skincare. And the reasons given, the ones that I've heard the most are that medical or professional grade skincare is allowed by the FDA to use a higher percentage of actives, or they have some special permission to formulate their products to penetrate deeper than what over-the-counter brands can do. It's not true. First of all, there's no governing regulation around the terms medical grade or professional in the realm of skincare. And if you noticed, if you've been into a spa, an aesthetics office, a dermatologist's office that is retailing skincare, typically the brands that they sell you can find in numerous other places. You can buy the same product on Amazon. You can buy the same product on the brand's website. There's no special permission needed to get those products. As far as the FDA is concerned, all of those products, with the exception of those that are literal over-the-counter drugs, such as sunscreens and certain anti-acne products, certain skin lightening products that contain hydroquinone, although those are fewer and farther between. But even like retinol, vitamin C, niacinamide, a lot of those ingredients that are active are not active in terms of drug status. So, but even that distinction in the medical and professional grade skincare arena, they have to follow the same rules everybody else does, and they have access. All of the skincare brands have access to the same ingredient suppliers. I promise you. So they pick and choose who they use. Some of them are doing custom formulas, which is what Paula's Choice does. Some of them are doing what's called turnkey, where they go to these labs that have a wardrobe of stock formulas. You know, I need a moisturizer for oily skin, and then I want a toner and a cleanser, and that's our oily skin routine. And they pick from established formulas and put their own label on them. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's how a lot of brands get started, because starting your own skincare line isn't cheap. But yeah, there's no difference. There's no difference in the regulatory eyes. I've seen these products, and certain ones that the staff will say, oh yes, this is formulated to penetrate much further into the skin. And of course, they can never really tell you how far or why that's actually a good or not so good thing. But then I look at the ingredient list and I'm like, nope, this is rather ordinary. That is not to say, because I want to be very clear about this, that products sold by dermatologists or any sort of a skincare professional setting aren't worth it or don't work. There are good and bad products, no question, but there are, just like there are good and bad products in the vast majority of brands out there. Or the doctor's line may not have products that meet your specific concerns, or that meet your budgetary concerns, or that meet your texture preferences. Because sometimes these lines are rather limited in the texture ranges that they offer. Maybe you don't want a super creamy moisturizer. Maybe you want to avoid jar packaging. Maybe you want a pure mineral sunscreen, and that's just not available in the line that your esthetician is selling. That doesn't mean you have to buy their products to have great skin. All right. Those are my myths, and I'm sticking to them. Let's see what you guys have to say. There was a question, I know Alice, I think, had her question in first. She says, is it important to wash your face after you sweat from exercise? Trying not to have to wash my face twice in the morning when I exercise in the morning. I mean, sweat is mostly water, but there are also, there's also some salts that come out in sweat, and depending on the natural composition of your sweat, some people produce low levels of other compounds, that like ammonia-based compounds, that can irritate the skin if you just let the sweat dry on it. But the good news is that sweat is very easy to get off, particularly from the face. And so just rinsing with water, or even splashing with water, or taking a face wipe or a face cloth and just kind of doing a very gentle once over should suffice. You don't need to actually go through the entire cleansing experience. So if you're showering after your workout, just stick your head under the water and rinse off that sweat, and you should be good to go. Katie asks, Brian, do you still use the C15 or now niacinamide? Can you still see the benefits of vitamin C from using the Resist Antioxidant Concentrate Serum? I had to stop using the C15 because I started having a reaction to it that I can't clearly explain. We thought maybe it was due to raw material changing, but then we found out that wasn't the case. It's the same formula. So I had to stop using the C15, and I do use the other product that Katie mentioned, the Resist Super Antioxidant Concentrate Serum. I layer that over the clinical 20% niacinamide treatment on the nights that I use that product. I alternate back. I'm alternating back and forth now with the clinical 20% niacinamide and the clinical retinol bakuchiol product. That seems to be working well. And my skin is drinking up the Omega moisturizer. Now that it's colder, now that the humidity has dropped, I'm just, that and the CBD milk, those are my go-to winter moisturizers right now for my combination skin. The serum with the vitamin C in our Resist line, the one for normal to dry skin, that has a form of vitamin C called tetrahexyldiesel ascorbate. We're using it at 5%, which is definitely an efficacious amount. Pretty significant anti-wrinkle, anti-skin yellowing. That's one of the, some people in their skin's melanin responds to sun damage before you see that brownish discoloration, whether or not it looks brown depends on how much melanin you have in your skin. The darker your skin color, the more that discoloration can look kind of grayish to black. But the yellowing is something that vitamin C can really help to counteract. And so I think that is where vitamin C gets its brightening reputation from, because once that yellow really kind of starts taking over, especially if you are Caucasian, it can really, or even some people of Mediterranean descent that have a lighter, more olive complexion, their skin color can start looking kind of sallow, and it can really kind of create more of like an unhealthy look. So I like it for that, and it's definitely at an efficacious amount. It's not as potent as the C15, I'll say that. If you really want to get that whiz-bang result from vitamin C, I would go with the C15 or the C25. I would still be using the C15 if my skin could handle it. For whatever reason, it can't right now, and I'm hoping that I'm hoping we'll get to the point where I can start using it again. Alex says, hey Brian, can I actually use 2% BHA and 8% AHA at the same time? Yes, you can. And one more question, is it a myth that chemical sun protection is not as good as mineral? Yes, and I say there is anecdotal reports that the mineral sunscreens, because of the manner in which they work, they both reflect and absorb and neutralize the UV radiation before it can penetrate too far and damage the skin. Whereas the chemical sunscreens like octinoxate and avobenzone absorb those UV rays and convert them to heat energy that then dissipates. What counts is that the sunscreen you are using is one that you want to apply, you like how it feels, you may even look forward to using it every day, and it is capable and tested and confirmed to provide broad spectrum protection, which means UVA and UVB, and is rated SPF 30 or greater. And I would add one more "and" to that, which would be that the formula contains at least one, preferably more, antioxidant, because the research is abundantly clear on the role antioxidants play in a sunscreen, both in helping to stabilize the formula, help defend your skin from the free radicals that some sunscreen actives can generate. Yes, it's true, even for the mineral ones. Get those antioxidants in the formula, and they are going to help neutralize those free radicals before they can harm the skin. It is not a huge deal. Nobody panic about this. It's just a part of how these ingredients work. And what is absolutely worth panicking about is that without your sunscreen, the UV light that is hitting your unprotected skin generates all kinds of bad things, including different types of free radicals that you do not want to have building up and causing that cascade of inflammation. So no reason to panic there, but it's one more reason to look for antioxidants in your sunscreen. Or let's say your favorite sunscreen is kind of low or maybe even void of antioxidants, apply an antioxidant-loaded serum under your sunscreen during the day. Or even a product like our C15 booster. Vitamin C is one of the best antioxidants to apply during the day. It's fine to use at night too, though. Okay, the king, sweat is water soluble, so you can cleanse only with water. Okay, so you're just answering. That's what I had mentioned. So we're thinking along the same lines. I wish I had seen that. I would have been like, oh yeah, what he said. Katie is asking, is synthetic sunscreen as protective as mineral? Any sunscreen's protective ability comes down to the total formula and its SPF rating. So yes, especially there are, if you're looking at the selection of actives available globally, there are some brilliant sunscreen actives out there, particularly in the European market, that are showing great stability. You don't necessarily need to go through the different formulary steps that many United States brands have to in order to make sure that the actives that are the chemical actives that are approved for us to use in this market remain stable in the presence of sunlight. And in truth, the one area where minerals have a bit of an edge is that they are inherently more stable in the presence of UV light. But that doesn't mean that a synthetic active mix can't be good. Or you could also look to the sunscreen actives that contain mineral and synthetic. And I'm seeing more brands doing that. And I think part of the reason is that you can achieve that higher SPF and with a lower amount of the synthetic actives. And some of those, depending on which ones you choose, some of them can be more sensitizing. For certain people, whereas the minerals are pretty inert, very rare to have a sensitized reaction to a mineral sunscreen active like zinc or titanium. Some people find that they make them break out, but a breakout from a sunscreen is not the same as an allergic reaction to a sunscreen. Different pharmacokinetics going on underneath the surface. So yeah, use, as long as it's broad spectrum, SPF 30 or greater, antioxidants, particularly antioxidants aplenty, use what you like. Don't pay as much. You can experiment, but if the one you like has just synthetic actives, no mineral, that's fine. That's fine. They're all tested the same way. Minerals aren't given a special pass, or tested any differently. It's all about what the numbers turn out to be and how the formula feels on your skin, how the aesthetics work. Jessica, so glad to catch one of your chats live. I've been using the 2% bakuchiol, 0.3% retinol for a couple of weeks for fine lines, but I've noticed less redness on my cheeks. Could that be related? 100%. 100%. Not only does that formula have some nice soothing plant extracts, but one of the reasons that we did 2% bakuchiol with that amount of retinol was because of bakuchiol's anti-inflammatory activity. So it not only helps your skin to acclimate and tolerate that amount of retinol, 0.3% sounds kind of skimpy, but in the world of retinol and with the potency of retinol, it isn't. That's considered fairly high strength for retinol. Whereas like a 0.1% concentration would be considered mid-strength and a 0.01% would be considered a lower level. Still efficacious, but, and the lower you get, the more your skin is likely to tolerate daily use without any issues. So bakuchiol is, it's interesting when that first hit the scene. the big story in the beauty press was it's the plant alternative to retinol. It works just like retinol. That part was never true. It delivers a lot of the same benefits as retinol and can even work along some of the same pathways in skin as retinol, but it doesn't work just like, it's not apples to apples. It doesn't work exactly like retinol. But its anti-inflammatory ability is, I can almost guarantee, because I've seen the same thing, I use that product, I can almost guarantee that's why you're seeing less redness in your cheeks. So I'm glad you're using it. I'm glad you like it. I think you'll continue to see benefits from it the longer you use it. Okay, so thank you for the question, Jessica. Anita, wait, you said infrared light creates wrinkles? Is this the same light that's in my LED red light with infrared mask that I use for the purpose of wrinkle reduction? Possibly. Those masks use a home for the red LED type masks. I can't speak to the specific one that you're using, but for short discontinuous use, they can have benefit. There is a bit of a irony, I guess you could say, about both blue LED light and red LED light because they have their beneficial skin applications, but they can also be detrimental. Blue light more than red light from what we know so far. Infrared light is simply light that produces heat. If I'm not, I don't think I'm saying this wrong. Somebody correct me if I am. My understanding is that the UV light that the sun emits on a clear sunny day is not what is making your skin feel hot. It is the infrared light that is causing that heat sensation. And particularly for those prone to melasma, I was just talking with a coworker about this the other day. You could have melasma and be doing everything right in terms of sun avoidance, no tanning, sunscreen every day, neurotically applied. You're using really nice treatment products. Maybe you're even seeing a dermatologist for in-office, like light emitting laser type procedures or similar. And let's say you have a job where you're working as a chef and you're spending a portion of every working day, in a hot kitchen or standing over a hot stove or steaming pots, that type of thing. That heat from that type of an environment can exacerbate the melasma. So you really need to be careful about that because there is the inflammation that heat causes can excite the melanocytes, the pigment-producing cells, and that for some reason that it can reactivate melasma. So it's just something to be aware of. Not saying that you shouldn't keep doing what you're doing. That's good for getting the melasma under control and hopefully getting to the point where it's nearly gone. But just that's something to be aware of in terms of a trigger that that can cause it to become more visible. All right, next up in line, Roberto. Hi, Brian. What about peptides and vitamin C, AHA, BHA? The Ordinary says it's a no-no, but I've heard mixed opinions. It depends on the peptide. Most of the ones that I have read about in relation to that, if the peptide is tied to a fatty acid, it should not be a problem. Some of the copper peptides can be a bit of an issue. Because of the metallic element and the acid element of the vitamin C. So that's one of those things where it's something you have to kind of determine on a formula by formula basis. I'm not aware within the Paula's Choice line, I'm not aware that any of the peptides we use in our products would be contraindicated for use at the same time with vitamin C or niacinamide. Part of that is because when we put together our formulas, we consider who will be using this, what else might they be using or interested in using, and how would those formulas react to each other? Would it be a synergistic benefit? Are there any risks? Are there any challenges that we may need to keep in mind when we're looking at putting together this new product? So all of that is taken into consideration. I can only speak for what we do in that regard. I don't know how the Ordinary approaches their formulas, and they may, in this situation, have opted to take a better, in a sense, it's the simpler explanation on their part to say, just don't do it, because if you don't make, then you don't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? It's just, you don't have to look at your labels and say, well, is that peptide okay and that one's not? You just avoid applying them at the same time. I don't think that's necessary in the broad sense. I think that there are some exceptions, as I mentioned. I mean, and I, as somebody who uses those types of ingredients, I don't think I'm seeing lesser benefit because something is happening with the formulas where when I combine them, you know, this isn't working and that gets degraded and so on. All right, Jen. Hello, Brian. What is the best way to alternate between chemical exfoliants and retinol? First, you don't have to alternate between those products unless you have determined that that is what works best for your skin. Some people think that retinol is also an exfoliant. It doesn't work the same way. It doesn't have that same benefit. What retinol does is it can change how new skin cells are formed. Those are referred to as keratinocytes, and then when they are fully mature and dead cells that are making up the surface of your skin, then they become what's called corneocytes. I just lost my train of thought and I wanted to get back to your, so retinol, retinol changes how those living keratinocytes differentiate as they move through the skin. It can get that process back to something resembling normal or more normal healthy skin. An exfoliant breaks the bonds that hold those dead, spent skin-dulling cells to the surface. It helps your skin do what it used to be able to do on its own, but for various reasons can no longer do as well or as efficiently, some cases not at all, and that can lead to a buildup. It can cause clogged pores, particularly if you have oily skin or oily areas. If anything, the way retinol works complements the action of AHAs and BHAs. So I'm a big fan of using them at the same time. But if you found that that combination is irritating to your skin, doesn't give you good results, and you're looking to separate them, my best advice would be do every other night. So one night is the exfoliant, either AHA or BHA. And on those days, if you are using both, you can maybe apply your BHA in the morning and your AHA at night, or vice versa. And then on the next day, no exfoliants, morning or evening. You use your retinol product, morning or evening. As I mentioned earlier in the show, it's fine to use retinol during the day as long as you're finishing with a sunscreen and you're not going to be outside for an extended period of time in direct sun. So yeah, I think that's how I would start. You may find that you need to change that frequency of application, but you won't know until you start experimenting and see how your skin responds. All right, let me take a couple more questions here. Carlene was asking if you can use bakuchiol when pregnant as an alternative to retinol. I don't know of a reason why you couldn't, because it's not like they are chemically identical, as I mentioned. They're different compounds that offer many of the same benefits. However, in a situation like this, I always default to just run that by your physician. There are products out there. I believe the Inky list has a good one that are bakuchiol only, no retinol or other vitamin A ingredients. But do check with your healthcare provider, or maybe even ask a pharmacist, letting them know that you are with child. And congratulations. And then Carlene, is it true that SPF ratings vary across different countries? So European SPF 30 is different from the American SPF 30. Greetings from Berlin. The actives, my understanding is no. There are some different, depending on the European country. There's a star rating system from Boots that some sunscreens in Europe, and including the UK, follow. That is more about level of UVA protection. But the manner in which the SPF rating is arrived at, and there's another test that is called the critical wavelength test, which helps to determine the broad spectrum claim. That critical wavelength looks at UVA peak. My understanding is that there are, if they're not identical, they're very, very similar. So where the EU sunscreens in the EU have a supposed advantage is that they have more actives to use, and ironically, in that part of the world, sunscreens aren't regulated as over-the-counter drugs like they are here or in Australia, for example. And so you'll see these sunscreen actives in a European formula listed among all the other ingredients. They're not, typically not, if it's a European-based brand, they're not called out as active. But they have more to choose from, and particularly in regards to options that offer very good protection, like on par with the mineral actives for UVA screening. And as an example, in order to pass like critical wavelength testing, you would need to use, if you're formulating a sunscreen here in the US, you don't have access to those additional ingredients that are approved in the European market. You couldn't just use avobenzone. You'd have to use avobenzone maybe with some octinoxate or maybe with some homosalate. You have to use several actives to get to that point. Whereas depending on what the active being chosen in the formula in the European market, you may be able to get away with just using two. Not necessarily, and then it gets a little complicated from there, because it wouldn't necessarily be true that you would, just because you're using two actives instead of five, that your active load, the percentage of actives, it can also be lower. It may actually need to be higher. But because those ingredients are active, there is some credence to the claim that the fewer active ingredients you have in a sunscreen, regardless of the rating, the less likely that sunscreen would be to cause a sensitized reaction, particularly when you apply it around the eyes or when you sweat while wearing it. Okay, one more. Who haven't we talked to? Let's see. If I did not get to your question and you want to just copy and paste it into the comments, I'll come back over the next few days. This year has just been a whirlwind so far. I can't believe we're 2 weeks into January. I feel like I just took down my Christmas tree. Let's see. Jasmine says, is it true? Last, we're ending on a myth question. Is it true that you should wait 15 minutes for the film formers in your sunscreen to actually fully build up this protective layer and therefore not apply powder foundation directly after sunscreen? I don't know that you need to wait that long. I haven't seen any hard evidence either way. Let's just put it that way. And what I like to do personally, this is my anecdotal advice to you, not based on research that I can point to and say, aha, that's why I'm telling you this. What I like to do is just wait until the sunscreen has set. You know, wait until it's absorbed. So I do give it a few minutes before I put, this morning I put some powder on, and then I did my shine stopper before the chat, but that's another story. Film formers, which are typically used in sunscreen formulas to convey water or sweat resistance, not water or sweat proofness. They're not impervious shields to that, which is why those claims have been disallowed. But they generally start working pretty dang fast. I mean, once that product has spread and you want to apply it nice and even, and then you just give it a minute or so to set. You can play around with the time. If you are applying a liquid foundation, I like giving such products a little bit more time, because I don't want as that product is setting to its final finish on the skin, and you put like a liquid foundation over it, even if it has sunscreen. I've witnessed this, especially going back in the day when I worked at the cosmetic counters. Um, and it seemed like there was a lot more foundations with sunscreen back then, but I could be mistaken. But I noticed that if I didn't give it enough time to set up, and then you immediately go in with that foundation over it, that it can kind of like make the foundation look streaky and not apply as evenly. So that's my advice on that front. 15 minutes though seems like overkill, and time is precious. I think maybe 5 minutes max should be more than enough time, and then you can proceed with your makeup. And if that makeup has additional sunscreen, even better. All right, that is it. I will be back in a couple of weeks, and I think the topic then is going to be high-strength exfoliants, and I'll be talking about our new, new to some of you. It launched last summer, limited edition, and we sold out in weeks. But now it's back by popular demand. The Skin Perfecting 25% AHA, 2% BHA peel. I will have one here for show and tell. Believe it or not, I never even got a tube of finished product when we launched it. By the time I got around to ordering it, it was gone. You guys snatched it up, and you love it. You guys absolutely love it. So we brought it back, and I'm finally going to get my tube. I did try prototypes of it as we were developing it, so it's not like I have no idea what it's like or what it does. I think it's awesome. But it would have been fun to have my own tube when it first launched. Anyway, that's just me complaining. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for joining me today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your week. And we're off to a good start in 2021.